Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Hundreds of mourners, including politicians, bid farewell to former Prime Minister Ahmed Karami in his hometown in the northern city of Tripoli. Grand Mufti Abdel Latif Derian deplores the political crisis plaguing Lebanon as a result of the conflict in Syria, insisting that only the Lebanese can save their country. And the Syrian National Coalition begins a three-day meeting to discuss a range of issues, including a Russian initiative to hold peace talks in Moscow to broker a resolution to Syria's civil war. Hundreds of mourners, including politicians, bid farewell to former Prime Minister Ahmed Karami in his hometown in the northern city of Tripoli. Draped in Lebanon's red, white and green flag, Karami's coffin was carried into Noor Square by police officers. Karami was laid to rest in an official funeral after prayers, which were led by Grand Mufti Sheikh Abdel Latif Derian at the Mansouri Great Mosque in the presence of Tripoli Mufti Sheikh Malik al-Shair. Top officials, including Prime Minister Tamam Slam, former Prime Minister Najib Miati, Ministers Gibran Basil, Yes Boussab, Rashid Darbas and Wael Abu Faour, as well as MPs Fuad Sanyura, Ali Bazi, Samir Jisr and Mohammed Kabara attended the funeral procession. Before the funeral, his casket was moved from the American University of Beirut Medical Center to Tripoli as mourners gathered on the streets of towns and in main squares in the northern city to welcome the convoy. Karami, 80, died on Thursday at the AUB Medical Center, where he was undergoing treatment from an undisclosed illness. Flags were flown at half-mast across the country after Salam announced a three-day mourning period starting today. Grand Mufti Abdel Latif Derian has deplored the political crisis plaguing Lebanon as a result of the conflict in Syria, insisting that only the Lebanese could save their country. On the occasion of the Prophet Muhammad's birthday, which is celebrated on Saturday, Derian said, "Our country is going through an exacerbating crisis due to the raging conflict next door, including the delay in the election of a president and the deterioration in political, economic and social conditions. Our country and our political system are threatened," he warned, stressing that only the Lebanese people can salvage Lebanon, no matter how much others claim to be able to save us from the predicament. He carried on saying, "Only with our free and strong will, our capacity to carry out dialogue and our long history of coexistence can we manage to get out of the trap." He also announced acts of violence and discrimination perpetrated by Muslim extremists under the false claim of defending Islam. A newly appointed Lebanese diplomat was beaten and robbed outside a restaurant in the Brazilian capital, Brasilia. Media reports say four men in a Honda Civic approached Abdelaziz Isa in the parking lot of a restaurant, beat him and stole his wallet and cell phone. Isa was reportedly taken to hospital with head injuries and a broken nose. He was released soon afterwards in shock and with no memory of what happened. Lebanon is expected to witness a heavy storm with snow falling in low-altitude regions in the coming week. This is according to the Lebanese Agricultural Research Institute, which says the heavy rain will begin today and temperatures are expected to drastically drop as a result of a storm called Manu. The institute issued a warning to fishermen and residents in makeshift shelters to take precautionary measures before the arrival of the storm. It also called on security agencies and municipalities to prepare for heavy snowfall. Lebanon's General Security has approved unprecedented entry restrictions for Syrian nationals who will no longer be able to enter Lebanon without a visa, in a move aimed at curbing the entry of refugees fleeing almost 4 years of conflict. A statement released by General Security on New Year's Eve said that under the new regulations, which will take effect on January 5th, Syrians can apply for 6 types of entry visas, including tourist, business, student, transit, short stay and medical. Tourists should provide a hotel booking, cash worth $1,000, in addition to valid passports and identification papers in order to get a visa for the duration of their hotel reservation. Business visitors should be able to submit additional papers proving they have business interests in Lebanon or invited by local or Lebanon-based companies to be granted a maximum 1-month visa. Syrian nationals who own properties in Lebanon must also present supporting documents, whereas students are required to provide official admission letters proving they're enrolled in Lebanese schools and universities. 2-day transit visas are granted to Syrian travelers through Lebanese ports and airport, and to applicants to foreign embassies who had closed down their offices in Syria and relocated to Lebanon. Activists say the US-led coalition has carried out more than a dozen airstrikes in and around the de facto capital of the Islamic State in northeastern Syria. The air raids struck several areas overnight on the outskirts of the city of Raqqa along the Euphrates River. It was the heaviest round of coalition strikes on the city since ISIS militants captured a Jordanian pilot after his F-16 went down near Raqqa on December 24th. The anti-ISIS activist group called Raqqa is silently being slaughtered reported at least 13 coalition strikes. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and the local coordination committee's activist collective also confirmed the air raids. There was no immediate word on casualties. The main Western-backed Syrian opposition group has begun a three-day meeting to discuss a range of issues, including a Russian initiative to hold peace talks in Moscow to broker a resolution to Syria's civil war. The Syrian National Coalition is also expected to elect a new president during the closed-door proceedings that opened in Istanbul today. Russian diplomats have been meeting with the Syrian government and the coalition to try to arrange talks without preconditions. The coalition has not ruled out participating, but has so far insisted that any negotiated settlement be based on the so-called Geneva platform, which states that there should be a political transition toward democracy through the formation of a transitional governing body with full executive powers. The Syrian government said it was ready to attend. And coming up next, Madrid's Atocha main train station is evacuated after a bomb warning that turned out to be false, thank God. More details after the break. Welcome back. You're watching the English news on FutureTV. Kurdish Peshmerga forces say they have recaptured a strategic village in northern Iraq from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Sources say at least 3 Peshmerga fighters died when the group captured the village of Sultan Abdullah, just 80 kilometers away from the Kurdish regional capital, Erbil. Reports say fighters had engaged in house-to-house battles with ISIL fighters in the village, demonstrating the lengths to which the group had to go in countering ISIL. Sultan Abdullah is on the banks of the Tigris River, and a highway to Mosul passes through the village. The Kurds are determined to keep hold of the village because losing it would mean opening up Erbil to a possible ISIL invasion. Moving on to Egypt, the family of jailed Al Jazeera journalist Peter Griste have applied to have him released by presidential decree in Egypt, describing it as their best option after a court ordered a retrial for him and 2 of his colleagues. Griste, along with colleagues Canadian-Egyptian Mohammed Fahmy and Egyptian Baher Mohammed, has been imprisoned for 370 days after being falsely accused and then found guilty of aiding the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood.
Yesterday, Peter and his colleagues had their appeal heard in the Court of Cassation. The outcome of the hearing was that a retrial was granted. We view this decision as a positive step in the legal process and one step closer to justice being served. The decision is also an acknowledgement that the first court trial was flawed and produced a number of procedural errors. Now that Peter is an accused person, we will be making an amendment to this application seeking his deportation. We believe that there is now a window of opportunity for the Egyptian President to exercise his presidential power under the decree. We are encouraged by this development, particularly in light of recent comments from President El-Sisi over the past few months wishing that the journalists had been deported. Well, we've got to be hopeful. It's a new decree and there's very little understood about it. There's very little regulation. There's no precedent, so we're in uncharted waters there. But I'd like to think that the decree was enacted for a reason to be used, so we're going to test it out.
A formal, detailed written judgment will still be some days away, and then the steps will be taken to fix a retrial. But in the meantime, we'll continue to be engaged at the highest possible levels. I'm waiting for the opportunity to speak again with Foreign Minister Shukri, the Egyptian Foreign Minister. We've spoken on many occasions about this matter. Our Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, has spoken to the President in the past, so we'll keep all of those avenues of engagement open while his legal team pursue the options and avenues available to them.
Moving on to Spain, travel plans for commuters at Madrid's Atocha main train station have been disrupted after the station was evacuated and later reopened following a bomb warning on a train that turned out to be false. The station was the scene of a bomb attack in 2004 after violent Islamists planted a series of bombs on Madrid trains, killing 191 people. Police say a man on a commuter train had been threatening to blow himself up, and another passenger pulled the emergency brake. The police said he had no bomb, but the man is being held for questioning. And now for news around the world in brief, an Icelandic Coast Guard ship carrying hundreds of migrants is being towed to Italy after it was abandoned by smugglers and left drifting without a crew in the second such case in just a few days. Children and pregnant women were among an estimated 450 migrants on board, most of who were believed to be from Syria. The Sierra Leone flag cargo ship apparently set sail from Turkey. Search crews have now recovered 30 bodies from the AirAsia crash, and an Indonesian Navy official says 5 of them were found still strapped in their seats. The 5 were among 7 bodies retrieved from the Java Sea and taken to an Indonesian vessel. There were 162 passengers and crew on board the plane that went down on Sunday, halfway through flight from Indonesia to Singapore. In Australia, firefighters battled grass fires at Moiston in the southern state of Victoria as temperatures soared into the mid-40s. Reports say some residents were told it was too late to leave their properties as the fire grew more than 10 times its size in 3 hours. Up to 9 aircraft attempted to control the blaze by dumping water on the area, which is approximately 1,700 hectares in size. Chinese state media and the public have criticized the government and police for failing to prevent a New Year's Eve stampede in Shanghai that killed 36 people and dented the image of the city, China's financial hub. The local news agency said the government could not shake responsibility for what happened. It asked why there were apparently so few police on duty for the tens of thousands thronging Shanghai's famous waterfront, known as the Bund. The site of the stampede was cordoned off, with grieving relatives holding a candlelight memorial. Most victims were students in their 20s. The waterfront has become a New Year countdown site in recent years after authorities brought in performances such as 3D light shows and fireworks. Celebrations in 2013 drew more than 300,000 revelers, and for the end of 2014, the government cancelled the show. President Xi Jinping has demanded an investigation into the deadly stampede. He also urged local officials around China to ensure that no repeat of the incident could occur elsewhere during the upcoming Lunar New Year festival. Well, this marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Hundreds of mourners, including politicians, bid farewell to former Prime Minister Ahmed Karami in his hometown in the northern city of Tripoli. Grand Mufti Abdel Latif Darian deplores the political crisis plaguing Lebanon as a result of the conflict in Syria, insisting that only the Lebanese can save their country. And the Syrian National Coalition begins a 3-day meeting to discuss a range of issues, including a Russian initiative to hold peace talks in Moscow to broker a resolution to Syria's civil war. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice weekend.